Yeah. Flowering, one right ahead of us.
So the one flowering is, we'll have a closer look. It's probably one of the bird cherries. It gets its name from the birds dropping them in here from the orchard. So it's it's probably the rootstock or one of the varieties that they grow for commercial cherries.
Someone else took it over.
See how the bark has all those lines going across it?
Yeah.
That's a good indication of the bird cherry, the non-native cherry that gets blown in. Our native tree cherry, that really distinctive bark that a lot of people describe it as burnt cornflake bark. It looks like cornflakes, but black or real dark brown. This one's another distinctive native tree. Anyone guess what this one's called? Yeah, shagbark hickory.
Yeah. Good
Pretty
size.
obvious, good name, eh?
I used to play in the street.
Really?
We don't live in Brinkley anymore, but we did 35 years. We did shagbarks on an Old Town property.
This old?
And a
And
bitter
bitter nut.
nut.
Here's a bitter nut right here.
This one?
Perhaps. No, it's a shagbark. We'll pass a bitter nut. They're a little bit similar, just no shagging. And then the other tree, unfortunately, there's some green ash here, or white ash, and I'm sure most of you have heard about the emerald ash borer. So some of these ash probably won't be doing well, but this one looks like it is coming out again.
Come in bars.
Yeah, they keep fighting all the ash, but they get done in.
Yeah. Here's a bitter nut hickory. So this tree right here is a bitter nut hickory, and you can see how smooth the bark is compared to shagbark.
They're just all starting to fill out now, right?
Yeah.
Used to come through here and walking with the skis.
Oh yeah.
Drive shed?
Great
Yeah,
ski
get
trip.
all,
Do you know the date of the drive shed here?
and
How
Sorry?
old it is?
kids, a lot of fun, and our dogs.
No, I don't know the top of my head.
That's like a great grandparents, isn't it?
Yeah.
Good sized boards in there.
Yep. But you can tell it was an old barn repurposed, right?
Look at that, yeah.
You can see the hand-hewn beams in here. Yeah.
Amazing.
Right under here is all the hand-hewn.
Jane's grandparents. Which road was it? Was it next road? The one there. Wait a minute, no, this one. Is it this one? I used to have a house up there.
Another bitter nut. And here's our first red oak, big red oak we'll see.
Oh, look at that. Look at that. Look at that, eh?
We'll see some bigger ones as we go, but
You
this
used to
is
walk along here and there'd be holes and like there's trees in the bottom from here. The holes, and then
great regeneration. And a lot of this is nice to be here in the spring because we've got spring beauty. This plant here, in about a week's time, it'll be all gone. It'll just be withered away. So this is one of the spring ephemerals. They pop their flowers out before the leaves come out on the trees, get pollinated, set seed, and before the canopy leaves out, they've already done all their reproduction.
How old was that oak tree?
This oak tree here, I would say that's approaching 100, if not over 100 years old.
Yeah, because I know they grow so slowly. Yeah?
Actually, the size of a tree is one of the worst ways to age them.
Yeah,
Because you can have willow trees,
that's right.
30 years old, this big,
Yeah,
and you
that's
can
right.
have escarpment cedars that big that are 1,000 years old.
Yeah, I know. I've heard about those cedars.
Uh-huh. One great way to tell is, see how this oak has a nice canopy. It looks like a street tree. It's got a healthy canopy. It doesn't have a lot
seem
of
to be a little too
dieback or
docile.
broken
This
branches.
Canadians
Yeah,
are.
it looks like a street tree.
States,
So
they
this
have
is
their guns out,
probably
they can
well
shoot
over 100
anybody.
years,
You
but
know
not
that.
really pushing the
That's
150
right.
year mark.
No,
Yeah,
no,
I
I
feel
know,
like
but
here-
you know,
But
I
they-
wonder what.
It takes very little to get them
See all this?
up in arms, and they almost have to
See all this balding here? See how this is shag bark, but
Yeah.
this is all completely different bark? This is what they call old growth bark. It starts at 150 years old.
Oh, wow.
So when
okay.
it's doing that, it's starting at 150 down here, and when it's doing it up here, you're well over 150 years
Wow. Look at that, eh? Oh my
old. So
God.
some of these trees are approaching the 200-year mark and surpassing it.
Yeah.
And this is an old one, and you can tell it probably
No, it isn't.
had it's broke.
And how
grown a
old is
new
our
canopy.
And how old is our town?
Yeah,
You know?
some of these trees I think are original trees. Sure.
Regarding the new growth from these shagbark hickory,
Yep.
down way further, we saw the orange, not leaves, but
Buds.
cover.
Yep.
Is that actually the red shagbark that they mentioned?
The red shagbark is off the trail. That one was a regular shagbark.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, but shagbark's buds, their buds, when they soften up and are ready to open, they get that really orange color.
Yeah.
And then they'll fold back and the leaves will come
Yeah,
out.
but only in the lower growth, he was saying. It doesn't happen up in there.
Oh, I didn't notice that. Yeah. No, the red hickory, the red, the rare tree that you're talking
How
about
do
is
you
just off the trail.
distinguish that from the regular?
That one doesn't have shags like the big shagbark hickory, but the best way to distinguish it is the buds. Shagbark hickories have buds that look rough and unkept. They have like flaking pieces off the buds. We can't see them now because they're just emerging, but the rarer hickory, its bud is fuzzy and stays tightly closed. So its bud, the two buds are distinct as a person's signature. And without buds, it's very difficult, but bark is very helpful.
Okay, thank you.
There's a maple. I forgot to write that down on my list. That's probably a red maple. You can tell from the. I'll look for a quick leaf here. The other thing is the maple leaves get quickly shriveled up. Yeah, here it is. So this is a red maple tree there, and this is a red maple leaf. And it's quite different from sugar maple, which is just here on the other side of us. The bark's even different. Look at how sharp the bark is. It's got these plates coming off, and that bark stays flat.
Oh, yeah.
And then red maple it looks like the old-fashioned Toronto maple leaf jersey. Remember the old one?
Yeah.
And then sugar maple is your Canada flag leaf.
Yeah.
The leaves are very distinct.
See, I'm learning things. I didn't know that.
And of course, here's poison ivy with leaves of 3. You want leaves
Oh,
of 8?
Okay, I'm gonna see.
Poison ivy growing all along the trail.
Yeah, awesome. I don't want any part of that one.
It's in the trail. This one right here.
This one is probably a white ash. Yeah, a white or green ash. It's quite difficult to tell, but because it's got such, look at how diamond-shaped the
Look at
furrows
the
are.
size of that tree. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
That's a white
I can't even
ash.
see the top of it.
And again, it's probably approaching 150, 120 years old because you can see its bark changing right here.
That's amazing.
See that different change there? So this is just getting to that 150-year mark. Most trees except tulip tree do that at 150 years. Tulip tree will do that at 120. So without having to core it or cut it down, you can get a good gauge of its age by this balding.
So peaceful in here.
Isn't it? Hear the woodpecker?
Yep.
Yeah.
So these dead wood like this is really important for the woodpeckers. That's where they find all the insects and food and larvae. Here's another bark that a tree you can tell by bark. It sort of looks like elephant legs or elephant skin.
Oh yeah.
That's American beech.
Wow.
Unique thing about them is they hold marked carvings. They'll hold that for years and years and years.
Oh.
Decades.
Oh, look at that, eh? 1998.
Yep. So that's exactly what old growth trees do. When I mentioned to look up and see if it looks like a street tree, a canopy street tree of the canopy, you can tell that when these trees grow, they'll lose a whole half of their crown, then they'll send a new shoot up. They might lose that whole crown and send a new shoot up. So even though you might look up and it looks like it's an 80, 100-year-old tree, it's probably been an 80, 100-year-old tree 3-4 times.
Wow.
So it could be 200, 300 years old.
That's amazing.
And look at the size of the trunk, right? That's a big red oak. But one whole part of the limb came down.
I was 8 years in the big windstorm.
Yeah, you remember when it came down?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It blocked off the trail for a year or two.
Is that right? It came this far.
Yeah.
Here's a basswood tree. And the woodpeckers and the sapsuckers love it. Often on basswood you'll see lines of holes in sort of intervals all the way around, and it's from sapsuckers perching here and pecking all the way around and then moving and pecking all the way around. And just the bark alone is with the peck holes is a good indication of basswood, and it's one of our softest woods, so that's probably why they peck at it. It's probably easier on their brains. Our first white pine tree. Oh yeah.
Oh, look at this one.
That's state.
Holy moly.
Yeah, we really don't expect it.
How many white pines are there?
All the new growth, it just hasn't been logged over.
Well, a lot like the young trees, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this forest is an oak hickory forest, and they're typically very open, very dry, very open. And that openness in years where it's not so dry allows all this regrowth, but then you'll have years that are really dry, and it'll sort of kill off all but the most well-placed trees. So probably fire was associated with these ecosystems too, and even made them more open. Because you can tell when this grew, this was open grown here, right? At the time this grew, this was very open.
Jesus, look at that.
And that's just typical of oak hickory forest. So the forest we're in, this is one of the best examples. It is the best example, in my opinion, of an oak hickory forest on the lake plain below the escarpment. It left in Niagara. And these trees, as I mentioned, are 200 years plus. And how old's the town? So these are some of the best representations
exactly,
of what it would have looked like here. And because of, you can tell this grew wide open in an open setting. The Native American people that were here would have burned regularly. They would have set fire to the wood to keep it open, to keep it free from bugs, to keep breezes, and more importantly, to create oaks, which love the fire and the openness.
Yeah.
That will drop acorns, which would bring in turkeys, deers, and all kinds of hunting animals. And they would have regularly burned and kept it open. And even if they didn't, the oak hickory forests grow in drier areas that are well drained and often are open on their own anyway. And natural fires could
So in other words, they bring that road through. These are not going to survive.
Yeah, if they bring the road through, a lot of these trees will be impacted by wind. Wind's one big thing. A lot of these trees, their canopies are so big, and when you open it up, you're going to get different wind patterns coming in. That's going to put stress on the trees. You're also going to bring in a lot of non-native species, and salt spray is going to be a big thing.
Well, even when they tried to bring that road through before, they went to the property, there's still a scar there. You can still see it.
And they probably didn't even cut the width of what they need for the
No, they
roadway.
didn't,
They cut
no.
just enough for a utility.
I remember when
maybe
they
a
did it.
belt
Yeah, it's almost 40 years ago.
line. Yeah. Yeah. The other spring thing here is it's called trout lily, and they call it that because it's got this patterned. I'll pass it around. It sort of looks like speckling of a fish, like a trout, and this is its flower.
Oh, wow.
Again, comes up before the leaves are out, and then it'll burn off and die off. These are already started getting a little overly hot,
Behind us.
and these will be all gone in a week or two. Which tree? This one is a red oak.
Red oak. Like
Yep.
Mike's. God.
So this is, so it's a red oak hickory. It's an oak hickory forest, but you could also throw in pine. Originally, when there was enough burning, the pines would have been here in more numbers. When there was more open, the pines would have been here in more numbers. But as pines were taken out or fallen, if you don't have open patches, you won't get pines coming up again.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. White pine's their tallest tree, so their technique is they can't compete. Sugar maple is the tree that loves to compete in the shade. Its young can compete in the shade of its parents. Red oaks their young can't compete under the shade of their parents, so they need new areas that are open. White pines, their tactic is to find an opening and shoot up faster and taller than anything else. And this is a great example of super canopy pine. We'll see some of this one here. This pine you can see from the QEW, it towers over.
Right, yes.
Yeah.
And that's what they call a super canopy pine. So its method is not to compete, just get above everyone.
It's always super.
Yeah.
Head for the sun.
Yeah. That plant out there, we might see it earlier, but see it looks like a little umbrella top. That group of plants out there.
Yes.
Oh, we'll see it over here. We'll look at it over here. Okay. We think so. I haven't confirmed it, but it looks good.
Well, this shagbark looks really loose.
It's off the trail, and it looks good for it, but I would rely on buds to make the call, and it's so high up we haven't found a bud yet. This is Jack in the Pulpit. Yep. Gets its name from the Jack in the Pulpit there.
Oh, I remember those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's just
Really feeling.
just a little bit younger.
Look at the bark.
I know. Wow,
Yeah.
that's a real.
I've not seen one
Look at the
go like
shapes
that.
of
Isn't
them.
that strips?
Yeah.
They take on their own
haven't seen that.
personality.
Yeah.
I have. Yeah, you used to have them on the property.
Oh, yeah.
We lived in yours.
Look and see any animals. You know, they
So the ash borer, does that fit into the hickory?
No, it's staying on ash right now, and it even has certain ashes that seems to like better than others. But it doesn't. We saw a number of ashes coming out again, so it hasn't really been in here too much.
Is there any kind of borer that you know of? Because I had a shagbark hickory that died, and I left it up after about 5 years because it looked so good still. And then we took it down, realized underneath.
It was all girdled underneath.
Yeah.
I don't know about something that attacks them. It'll be new to me. I'm not sure, but you're pretty sure it's something that girdled it underneath.
Oh, I
like
know
a
for
larva,
sure, yeah, because we took it down.
Yeah, no, I'm not sure.
And that was like about a 20-inch diameter.
Is that right? So this plant is what I was talking about. This is called mayapple, and it'll flower under here. It'll only flower. It'll first come up with one sort of umbrella, and then in another year, as it gets older, it'll get two umbrellas. And once it gets two umbrellas, it can then flower. It'll have a beautiful white flower under here, and then it creates a little apple, which apparently is edible, but it's very hard to get once it's. If you eat it too early, it's mildly poisonous. You gotta wait till it's ripe, but it's very difficult to get it when it's ripe before the raccoons and.
That's the animals must get at it too, right?
Yeah. The early bird gets the worm, I guess. So here we can see a floodplain. So this is part of a creek. The slope of the forest drops down a little bit, and the floodplain's there. Yeah, and the roadway cut, I believe, is just back there, right? Yeah. So it cuts that way. So this is one of the nicest spots. You can see the super canopy pines and the oak hickory forest. So this is minus the sugar maple. The sugar maple always comes in when there's a lack of fire. We've got young sugar maples in the understory, but when fire would have been a part of the equation and when there would have been more natural storms that would have had tip-ups in open areas, there probably would have been less sugar maple, and this is one of the best examples of what this original oak hickory forest would have looked
You know,
like.
some of these older trees, I wish they could talk to you and tell you the story, you know?
Lots of stories.
One of the best trees is this one. Perhaps we'll go just off the trail here. Up the trail here. So again, here's another old hickory with getting that balding
You know
bark
what, we
down here.
need
So
love.
even though it's not big,
Trouble we're having.
certainly 150 years old at least.
They're taking away all the trees.
Another big red oak.
That's our oxygen. That's why you smell so much in
So that's one of my favorite trees in here.
The Jack in the Pulpit.
Yep. And have a look at that one right there.
It's the big one?
Yeah. That's a big red oak.
Look at the character in it. All
Yep.
the way up there.
So you can tell that tree, maybe we'll get a better look from here, but this tree would have grown for so many years that it's completely lost its crown up there, and then it's regrown, and it's just a massive, massive tree.
What kind of tree is that big one there?
Red oak.
Red oak.
Beautiful. And then a nice stand of pine.